Chapter 4. Sawyer led her three children outside to the garden, and there she waved her door into existence. They walked through to the ocean cliff, where many years ago she had realized she was in love with Julius for the first time. She sighed and breathed in the ocean air, letting herself get lost for a minute in the memory. It was just past dusk here, and the moon was beginning to rise in the sky. She and Julius still came here often, but she had never brought the children here. "This place is beautiful, Mom," Hannah said. "Why have you never brought us here before? It's wonderful," Harlow asked. "Before I met your father, I used to come here. I would stand for hours and feel the pull of his soul towards mine. When I first met him, I used to bring him here, before I even knew he was my soulmate. Once, before my soul song, I even brought him here to say goodbye to him. This is a place where we still come together. We stand and let our souls be at peace," she answered. "Is this the place in the painting Dad made of you?" Harlow asked, finally recognizing the background. "Yes, it was the first gift he ever gave me. He painted it from memory for my birthday," Sawyer said, thinking of the enormous painting that hung in their home. "Wait, why would you ever have to say goodbye to him?" Simon asked, picking up on what his mother had just said. "I said goodbye to him the night before my soul song. I was madly in love with him, but I knew only my soulmate could help me save the world. If he wasn't my soulmate, I was bound by duty, not love," Sawyer said, remembering the heartbreak of that night. "Well, I'm glad he was your soulmate. I couldn't imagine a better father," Simon said quietly. "Come, we must seek a seer who walks in both worlds," Sawyer said, getting back to the task at hand. "How do we do that?" Harlow asked. "I'm not sure, but I have an idea. We stand together, hand in hand. We let our ethereal string combine, and we will concentrate on what we seek. Our silver light should reach out for the energy we want, and we must concentrate only on what we seek," Sawyer said with more confidence than she felt. She held out her hands, and Simon took her right, and Harlow took her left. Hannah then joined hands with Harlow, and the four of them became linked. Slowly the ethereal strings came forward and began to twirl together. It then began to spread out in different directions to find the energy they sought. Sawyer noticed Simon's string was thinner than theirs, and its glow was weaker. It looked very weak, and she instantly became concerned at the sight of it. She leaned over to him and whispered, "Simon, how long has your silver light looked like that?" "A couple of months was when I first noticed it. It seemed to fade more each day," he whispered back. "Why didn't you tell me? We need to see Mother," Sawyer reprimanded. "It's fine. My birthday is in 2 days, and I'm sure it will be restored when my powers are sung in. Besides, it hasn't affected anything. My powers continue to grow stronger every day. In fact, I can't explain it, but the weaker it grows, the stronger I feel," he answered. "Now let's concentrate. We can't concentrate if we keep talking." She nodded and tried to wipe the concern from her mind for the moment. She couldn't, though, because the farther Simon's thread got from him, the weaker it became. Finally it faded out, no longer able to be seen. She had never seen a face silver light look like this. She added it to her list of things to worry about. She almost called a stop to everything when the small part she could see blinked out like a burned-out light bulb. At that exact moment, Harlow cried out excitedly, "I think I found her." Harlow waved a hand, and they all looked at what she looked at. A tiny home with a faded, hand-painted sign hung on the doorway. The sign said "Psychic and Tarot Card Reading." They zoomed inside the small house, and there, sitting at a table barely big enough for two, was a woman. She had ebony skin, the color of caramel, and light brown hair. She sipped from a teacup and thumbed through a magazine. She looked up silently, feeling their presence. It seemed she looked directly at them, and then she sat silently, sizing up her uninvited guests. Finally she spoke. "If you want something, then make an appointment. I see you're far away, so I will tell you the town I live in is Pruitt. But ain't nothing in life for free," she said, and closed her eyes. The connection was instantly broken. "She's powerful," Harlow said. "Yes, she broke from 4 Fae. She must be the seer we are searching for," Sawyer said. "Well, let's find out where Pruitt is and go get her," said Harlow, already pulling out her phone to find the answer. Sawyer let out a sigh and said, "I know exactly where it is." "How?" asked Simon. "An old friend lives there, and we will need his help," Sawyer answered. She waved in her door, and they stepped through onto a small ranch. She wondered for a moment if she should have told Julius before going, but she was working with limited time. The children followed her and stopped when an old horse came sauntering up to them. Sawyer reached out to pet the familiar old horse. The horse nuzzled her hand and showed her images of the years gone by. I see the years have been kind to you, old friend, she spoke to the horse. Mom, why is this horse showing you its life? Asked Harlow, who had been petting it and saw the images also. This horse was born at our home, but left with its real master, Sawyer said. A man came walking out from behind the barn and stopped when he saw her standing before him petting his horse. He stared at them with his piercing blue eyes. He was surprised to see her here. She looked exactly the same as she had 22 years ago. He saw the young man standing next to her and saw he was a spitting image of Julius. Judging by the look on his face, it seemed he had the same temperament also. He saw the twin next and was astounded. They were the perfect blend of Sawyer and Cassia. The one who had the same hair color as Sawyer was even dressed similarly to her. He would bet she was kind and sweet, just like her mother, too. The one with the white hair like Cassia was dressed much differently. She stared at him fearlessly, and when their eyes met, something exploded inside of his chest. He thought for a moment he was injured, but he finally regained his composure. He walked toward them slowly, and when he finally reached them, he greeted them without much enthusiasm. Hello, Sawyer, he said. Hello, Liam, she answered. Harlow had become nervous as he approached them, and she wasn't sure why. When her eyes had met the stranger, something inside her popped. She was unsure what it was and wasn't sure what was happening right now. To what do I owe the pleasure, he asked, afraid to hear the answer. I need your help, Liam, she answered. He laughed at her request. What could I possibly help you with? You are the strongest Fae ever created. He then pointed at Simon, and if this one's powers match his father's as much as his face does, I see no need to involve myself. There is a seer in your town, and we need your help. I need to see if she's powerful enough to tell the difference between you and me. If she can't, then we're all in danger, Sawyer told him. He stared at her for a long time and knew she must be in real danger if she sought him for help. Finally, he shrugged his shoulders and said, Sure, why not? Where's the seer? Somewhere in this town, she said vaguely. Should I grab my truck, or are we taking a door, he asked. Your truck. I don't know how to get there, but not through a door, Harlow answered. Plus a door might tip her off. Liam was dumbfounded by the sound of her voice. It was bells ringing in his head. He shook it off and said, Follow me, and started walking towards the garage. As they walked, Sawyer could tell something was different about him, but wasn't sure what. How's your horse, she asked. He's getting old. He can't run as often as he used to. Most days we just go on an easy ride, but sometimes he surprises me with a quick burst of energy, he answered. He pressed the remote, and the garage door opened. He had a big black truck with double doors. Sawyer and Liam got in the front while the other three got in the back. Carla was in the middle back there so she could see and give directions. I have to say this truck doesn't look like something you would normally drive, Liam, Sawyer said, noting the worn condition of the truck. The Liam she remembered was wild and reckless. He loved fast cars and crazy women. He had been concerned with appearances, and this truck did not match that personality. People change, Sawyer, he said solemnly. Not usually, Liam, she answered. So you're saying Julius is the same man who had been prepared to rip out my heart the night of your soul song, or is he different, he asked, trying to prove a point. He is definitely different, but he is always prepared to remove your heart from your body, she answered, half-jokingly. Turn left at the end of the driveway, Harlow instructed from the back seat. Once again, her voice rang in his ears, this time like soft music. It was becoming unnerving. He wondered if she had some kind of enchantment power. She had started wondering the same thing as she listened to him talk to her mother. She knew his kind had the power to render someone pliable to their will, but she couldn't believe he would use it on her. Nonetheless, she felt mesmerized by the sound of his voice. He turned left. Follow this road for 12 miles, she instructed. Sawyer turned to look at Liam as he drove. What happened, Liam, she asked. Hunter happened, he answered. I thought you two parted ways long ago, Sawyer said, confused. We did, he answered despairingly. She left for Seattle with Rexley, but about a year later Lucas came to me with the news of her. She'd gotten out of control. She fed recklessly and sometimes in the open. She had amassed a following and turned them all. She had humans coming to her in droves, and she told them all when their numbers reached 200, they would take over the city. When I found her, she was 3 short of her goal. The night I found her, she was in an old warehouse by the pier. She sat on a throne erected on a stage above them all and looked like she was holding court. She was feeding in front of everyone, and they were like wild dogs drawn to the scent of blood, he said. What did you do? Sawyer asked, horrified by what he was describing. I put her down like a rabid dog she'd become, before she could inflict her madness on anyone else, he said, and his voice caught in his throat. And Brexley? Sawyer asked. She begged me to end her also. She had never embraced the change. She had only done it for Hunter, and without a Hunter, she didn't want to go on, he answered. I'm so sorry, Liam, she said, and reached out to touch his shoulder. And when she did, she saw the memory of the last part of the story, and she gasped and pulled her hand away quickly. He knew what she had seen and looked at her ashamed. I couldn't let them live, Sawyer. They knew too much about our kind and about you. By that time, I had heard you were already pregnant again, and I couldn't expose any of us. I did what I had to do to repair the damage Hunter had created. The newspaper reported the warehouse caught on fire during an illegal raid, he explained. You still hear their screams, though? She asked. Every day I hear the screams. They're loudest at night. I know now how Julius must have felt all those centuries ago when he cleaned up my mess. I just figured if he learned to live with it, then so will I someday, he said. You're not like Julius, though, Liam. He had no real feelings for those things. I can assure you he doesn't have screaming ghosts in his head. You must let me help you and take that memory from you, she said. He looked at her and gave her a sad smile. Maybe someday, Sawyer, but I will keep it for now. Thanks for the offer, but I need to remind myself. Turn right and follow the dirt road. The house we seek is at the end of it, Harlow said, and wondered what her mother had seen in that tormented man. They turned down the dirt road, and the worn-out shocks of the truck bounced them around inside. Finally, they could see the tiny house come into view. The sign wasn't the only thing that had faded. The paint was peeling away from the house in large chunks, and the bare wood was exposed in places. The porch sat crooked and looked as if it might collapse at any moment. The yard was overgrown with weeds and sticker bushes. The house looked like a shack, and Sawyer dreaded what the inside would look like. They all climbed out of the truck, and a tall woman walked out of the door. She walked to the edge of the porch and leaned against the old post, holding it up. She folded her arms together and stared at them curiously. She wore a knee-length red dress and high heels. Her nails were done the same shade of red as her dress. She was very tall and held herself with confidence. If Sawyer hadn't noticed she had an Adam's apple, she would have thought they were in the wrong place. Do you have an appointment? She asked them in a rude tone, but her voice wavered slightly. Simon pulled his wallet from his back pocket and pulled out all of the money in it. He only had carried $500 with him, and seeing the dilapidated condition of her home, wished he had brought more. Suddenly his wallet was full again, and he closed it quickly, not sure how that had just happened. One thing he was sure of, though, was that he didn't need his mom freaking out about it right now. He held up the money to her. I believe we do, he said. She saw the money in his hand and relaxed a little bit. You're right on time, she said. They walked up the rickety porch, and she took the money from Simon. She motioned for them to follow her inside. Everyone was shocked by the interior of the house. It was an old house, but the inside had been kept in pristine condition. The furnishings and decorations looked like something you would see in a museum. Liam, who had been around to experience the Roaring Twenties, recognized the decor of that decade. She led them to a small sitting room and invited them to sit. After they were seated, she took her time looking at all of them individually, trying to size up what she was dealing with. Finally, she spoke. You're the ones who were peeking in on me earlier, weren't you? She asked. Yes, ma'am, we were, Hannah answered, embarrassed. Well, then, we might as well get acquainted. My name is Celine, and you are sitting in my great-grandmother's house. She had the gift of sight and passed it along to me with this house. Now that we've gotten past the pleasantries, shall we start? She asked, and they all nodded, not sure what to do next. She pointed at Liam. I know what you are, but I can't figure out what the rest of you are, so why don't we start there, she said, and sat back to wait for their response. We are Faith, said Sawyer. Like fairies, you mean? Celine asked and sat back up. Sawyer nodded and gave her a moment to let it sink in. I thought you were witches when you looked in on me. When you got here, though, I could see that you were something else. I never would have imagined you were fairies, though. My granny used to recite a poem about fairies, but I don't remember it. So then what is he? She asked, pointing at Simon. He is also Fae. This is my oldest son, Simon, Sawyer answered. Sorry, Mama, but he's not like you three. He is something else, and I assure you it isn't Fae. Celine answered, scrutinizing Simon again. But whatever he is, I've never seen his kind before either, so I guess we can all be surprised together, she finished. I assure you he's Fae. His energy seems different, because he's the first of his kind. No Mayfail existed before him, Sawyer said, defending her son. I'm guessing we'll see soon enough, because his energy is vibrating like crazy. Now, since I know you're not here to get your palms read, why don't you tell me why you've come here, she asked. Simon put a hand on his arm, but could not feel himself vibrating. Sawyer began her story at the very beginning when 4 men showed up at her doorstep 2 months ago before her birthday. She explained the Fey realm and got a little too reminiscent about the children growing up. She ended the story with them pulling up to Celine's door. Sawyer had sat back and listened to the entire story. She never interrupted or asked any questions. She didn't show shock or disbelief in her expressions. She just took in the information until Sawyer was done speaking. The silence weighed heavily in the room as Celine processed all the information Sawyer had just given her. When she finally broke the silence, when I was a little boy, my granny would pull me into her lap every night before bed. She would tell me stories about fairies and then would tell me they were real. She would tell me she had come across one once in the woods. She said this fairy was very old and had hair as white as snow. She would tell me that someday a fairy would come to me for help and made me promise when this day came I would do everything I could to help you. She said this was the day my whole world would change, and so here you are. I thought she was making it up so I'd feel better about being different, but she was telling the truth, Celine said, astonished. So you will help us? Sawyer asked hopefully. I made a promise to help you a long time ago. What do you need me to do? She asked. I'm going to open the children's memories of the mist to you. Do you think you can look and tell us what you see? Sawyer asked. I can try, Celine said. Good. We can start with Simon, since he was the only one to hear the mist speak, and he saw the woman, Sawyer said, and stood up. Sawyer waved her hand in a circle around the room, and it became the sidewalk behind the university, where Simon first saw the mist. They watched as the mist caught Simon's attention, and then saw Julius walk through the doorway Sawyer had made for him. Sawyer froze the memory for her, and Celine approached the black mist. She bent down to get a closer look and tentatively reached out a finger to touch it. After a moment, she began to speak. It's a soul trapped, and she's screaming because she thinks you can't hear her. She's also screaming because a bright flash of light transported her into the mist, and now she can't get out. She's confused, but was somehow drawn to Simon. She was hiding now in the place where creation began. The tree spirits are hiding her. She stood up and turned to Sawyer. They weren't coming to harm your children. They were coming to warn them. Something is coming for you all, but it wants you first, Sawyer. You can't see what's coming for us, Sawyer asked. No, that's being shielded from me, most likely by a witch's spell, Celine answered. What about the Furies? What do they have to do with this? Sawyer asked. It's vague at best, but as far as I can tell, only Simon and the Furies have the ability to call forth the power to stop this. It's not clear, though, Celine answered, wishing she had more answers. What power do you speak of? Tell me, and I will call it forth now, Simon exclaimed. I don't know. I get a flash of a young woman, but I can't hang on to it, she answered. I saw her also, but I can't keep her image in my mind. If I can't see her clearly, I can't call on her. I can't retain her long enough to know who she is, Simon said, frustrated. Maybe if we go to where the mist hides and I can see it up close, I can get clearer answers, Celine suggested. You would be willing to come with us? Sawyer asked hopefully. Are you kidding me? This is the most exciting thing to happen to me since I found a pair of Manila Balonics in my size, Celine said. Harlow nodded at her, understanding how thrilling that could be. Let me pack a bag and we can leave, Celine said. We have everything you need if you forget anything, Sawyer offered. Celine laughed. I highly doubt that. My needs are different from yours. They waited for Celine to pack what she had called her essentials. They were going home before heading out to find the mist. Sawyer knew the mist hid in the place where she had created the tree spirits so many years ago. She talked Liam into coming with them, feigning the need for him to help. In reality, she wanted to help him. Lucas would arrive tomorrow, and that would be helpful in convincing Liam to let her take his memory. She also had a feeling that they needed him, but she wasn't sure why. When Celine came out dragging two large suitcases and a large makeup case, they all just stared at her idea of essentials. She looked at all of their expressions and laughed. What? A girl needs her things.